Chapter 2 Social Butterfly. Taking the piss. This was a few years before Facebook took off. People were still using MySpace and chatting with AOL and MSN Messenger. If I wanted to meet new people, I would have to introduce myself to everyone, the old-fashioned way. I would need to scour Radford searching for friends, or even high school acquaintances that I had met, to start networking. After not even beginning my search, someone found me in theirs. With hundreds of rooms in the 13-story dorm, he found me somehow. His name was Patrick O'Connor. I knew Patrick from high school. He was a good friend of a few of my girlfriends, but we weren't close. I hadn't told him where I would be living. He just happened to find me. Perhaps I was trackable. I had no idea. Patrick was very annoying. He had a habit of being a close talker and never knowing when to leave. He found me in my dorm as I was reading with my door open. A habit that I quickly stopped for one good reason. If you're sporadic in your actions, then the only predictability is your unpredictable nature. This was a great way to stay hidden, and a good way to keep women guessing where you were. Patrick and I shot the ship for a while, talking about girls. I told him I was dating Brooke, and told him how much I cared about her. He told me about all the different girls he had been with that summer. Patrick did not seem to have any sort of game, charm, or James Bond sex appeal when we had last hung out together. This time he was different. Patrick had a sort of swagger about him. He asked to use my bathroom, so I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." I couldn't just tell the guy he couldn't piss. At least I assumed he had to piss. Instead, he took the piss out of me by christening my dorm room toilet. He was taking more than a minute, and then I heard a big fart. I asked him if he was shitting, and he said, "Yeah," and laughed. It wasn't like I was going to bust in there and butt plug him to stop it. All I could do was just say, "You motherfucker, I'll get you back." After 15 minutes, I had to ask if he was okay, and he said, "Yep." I walked down the hall and chatted up some girls. I was 4 rooms away from mine, and all I could smell was Patrick's shit. The worst part was that all of the freshmen on my floor had their doors open at all hours of the day. I was so embarrassed that people would think that it was me that had produced such a god-awful smell. It was the one time I wished everyone's doors were closed. When he came out, my room absolutely reeked. I made some sarcastic comments to Patrick for stinking up my room. I told Patrick I had a class to go to, so our time together had to come to an end. He invited me to come over to his house later in the day, and I said, I may come by, but I didn't want to. Patrick insisted that I at least attend his fraternity party later in the week. I finally agreed, even though I had no intention of showing up. Any fraternity that let that kid in could not be party animals like me. Before he took his leave, he introduced himself to every girl on my floor that he missed on his first go-around. He asked me to come along with him so that I could introduce him to people he hadn't met yet. It was surprisingly awesome to watch him work some magic. His confidence was magical for sure, but the way he introduced himself to women was utterly foolish. He would say, "My name's O'Connor, Patrick O'Connor." Sometimes he would just introduce himself as O'Connor, and girls would ask, "What's your first name?" He loved this, because it was easier for him to insert his cheesy introduction line into the conversation that way. He practically invited everyone on my floor to his frat party. This is when I realized that inviting girls to parties was a great reason to talk to them. Parties were less personal than dates too, so there were no expectations that they had to come. Patrick had the confidence to invite girl after girl to his party without taking no for an answer. When Patrick was finally gone, I went back to my room and grabbed my books. The awful odor started to stick to me, so I rushed to leave. I closed and locked the door. This trapped in the horrendous smell. At least the smell would prevent anyone from wanting to steal anything out of our room. When I came back from class, Ethan was in the room. He had both of the windows open and had fans pointed towards them. The first thing he said to me was, "Why does our room smell like a shithouse door at Thanksgiving?" I explained that an acquaintance from high school stopped by, named Patrick, and he had asked to use our bathroom. The rest was self-explanatory. Ethan told me that he grew up on a farm, and that living things are not supposed to smell like that. The smell of a rotting animal was still in the room hours later. I would have to get Patrick back. I just didn't know how or when.